we met years ago before the pandemic. We've been a couple projects together and we've just become friends since. And I thought to reach out to you about my new venture and like creating an open forum about the treatment and pitch process. And we haven't had a creative director on yet. We've only had directors. So I'm just so excited to get your perspective and like illuminate what happens from your point of view. I mean, it's pretty much the juicy stuff that we'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't even know, where to begin. I think I even had my list of questions, but I guess, yeah, I mean, maybe share a little bit about like your background and how often you're sort of like, reaching out
Um,
to photographers or directors to pitch, and how often are you seeing and having to kind of go through treatments?
Yeah, so first off, it is funny that like here you and I are having wanted to work together for a long time,
Yeah.
but somehow it hasn't worked out yet, but we will.
Yes.
But I'm so glad that we're friends. And yeah, so my background, is as an art director, have worked on, mostly larger brands like the Cottonelles of the world, Clorox, Love Wellness. That was a great time. Humana Insurance and some others. And, in that process, learning a lot, where, I was kind of just like, didn't have a seat at the table yet, right? And I was kind of just like looking in, being like, oh, I want to like, do more. And eventually, getting to the place where I get to actually have a say in the game and be part of like, choosing the directors in the beginning. And now, for the last 3 years, I've worked as a freelance creative director, which is, a very different dynamic than working full time at an ad agency, because just like you're not involved in all of the process, depending on the team. Some places you are, but I realize it's a lot harder to like pitch my favorite directors.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just like what that creative director wants to, who they want to go with or who they work with, or who maybe like the brand already works with. So it's harder than being full time, where you have like more skin in the game, maybe.
Right, right. That makes sense. Like freelancing, you're kind of inserting yourself in something that's been is building and you're just like elevating it, or they need that extra support to, dive into a campaign.
Yeah, and so yeah, and even if like I'm leading it, like the last few campaigns that I did, it was me and another copywriter with the CCO, doing it. So like very small team, but still like, in those instances, they wanted to choose the director we went with, and it turned out to be great. And we got to be involved in everything with that. And the difference, what like lately, it's been a lot of like single bidding. Like I'm used to at larger agencies, triple bidding,
Mhm.
right, where you have three directors, you get to see three treatments, and now it's the single bid is sometimes easier, but sometimes it's like you just hope that it works out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I mean, that's everyone's dream is to have a single bid. Obviously, I think at least from like my perspective, it just is like, okay, what are the odds?
Yeah.
So, oh, we've got some more people joining. So yes, this is my great friend, creative director Brian Lamy. For everyone that's still joining, and we're talking about the client side of things. But so Brian was just talking about how he's a freelancer currently and kind of inserting himself into a lot of different brands. But yeah, we met when you were at FCB Chicago.
Yeah.
And yeah, working at Cottonelle, Renew Life, all of those really great clients. And can we maybe like go back in time a
Yeah.
little bit? Because I think the most valuable insight, I've actually honestly never really had like a thorough conversation about what it looks like when you take the three, director treatments and you go to pitch them and you walk into your client meeting. That is such a blur to me. It's very mysterious. And
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you could even say like, well, actually, we only show one. I mean, like, I don't even know. I mean, maybe you just choose one, maybe, all of these secrets of, do you just take certain pages? Do you just bullet point like how, do you actually show their treatment? Do you actually show their reel when you get in front of that client meeting? Do you all align on your favorite and then say like, this is who our favorite is, and like this is our backup? Like I think of it like a casting session. Like there's 100 people, we have a first choice and a backup, and we put 3 on hold. And so maybe the third bidder doesn't get in front of the client, but at least you have FaceTime with them. But maybe, yeah, like please feel free to be as
Yeah.
open as you feel comfortable being. Obviously, I know that there's like proprietary information, but we can kind of talk in generalities, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a few things. One, the first thing is, yeah, it's pretty rare to share like a full treatment with the client. I mean, it does happen, especially if it's like our number one, we'll share the full deck. But normally it is like when we present to client, curated down to the pages that, we feel are most important for selling that director.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we are strategically thinking how can we sell the client on the director that we think will make the best work, right? Like creatively, but also strategically for what the client needs as well. Um, and sometimes, like that person might be more expensive than the others. Sometimes it works that like they are in budget. But so with those like different factors, we have to think about like if our number one is going to be more expensive, how do we sell the added value, right?
Yeah.
And so it might be, like showing, comparing their expertise on like what we specifically need to the others that we are showing. And it's like not to say the others can't do it, because of course like if they don't choose this one, then we have to go with the others, and we want to make sure that they know that those two are just as good, or not
Yeah.
just as good, but they can
Yeah.
do it, right? But this one, like they know how to do this lighting specifically how we want. If we go with the other ones, it might just take a little bit more work if you're willing to be patient and experiment a little bit. So we kind of like tread those different topics, right? To make sure that we kind of sell in like the person that we really think will be the best. And so also it's like, from the beginning, like choosing the examples from their reel or their book that we think are going to align best with like our project and help them see. Because as like creatives, it's easier for us to see how something might transpire for our vision, but for the client, they really want to see it, kind of what they're expecting, right? If they're expecting colorful gel lights, they're like, well, they don't have any work like that,
Yeah.
right? um,
Very literal. You
Very
kind
little,
of have,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. How do you go about pitching? Like, I think the thing that's kind of the catch 22, because it's like, as a director, you have to have the spot on your reel to get booked for that. But, in the event that you don't, and you're putting this work into a treatment, and most of the time, ideally you don't have the spot already made, because that just means that it's already out there in the world. But especially with clients, they just want to see like a really close example that's already on the reel. So in those cases, where like how do you help pitch directors through when it's not a super clear like sell? Or have you seen successful ways that directors and photographers have positioned themselves in their treatment that helps like see, okay, they can clearly do this, and they're the strongest candidate regardless if the exact thing doesn't exist yet? Like how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, one great example is if someone has the look that we are going for, but maybe, the director doesn't have all the skills for like working with the talent to be more storytelling, and it's like they're used to maybe more just straightforward type of directing. We want to share, both parts of like maybe they had one project where it, something newer that they just came out with, that shows the storytelling, but it's not in the look and feel,
Uh,
right? So we'll show them like, hey, they can get our look and feel, like they know this to a T. And here's a couple of new projects where they're showing us their ability to work with talent, pull the emotions out, tell the story, beyond just like showing the product. And so that has been beneficial, to help win them over, to help them understand like this director can do both. They just haven't maybe done both together yet. And maybe that's a great point, is like we're creating something that is newer that people are not used to seeing in this look and feel, with like a great narrative, for example.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. How often is it when you present your favorite and then the client does like go a different direction? Like, do you feel like they trust you guys often, or are they just, they're like, no, our gut is to go this way, and you're just like, okay, great, and I mean, is it frequent or?
I think I mean, it really depends on the client. A lot of times, at least with like larger brands that you would expect to have money, like a lot of CPG brands don't really actually have that much money for shoots. Like depending on if it's a large brand shoot, great. But if it's like one or two products that they're
Yeah.
doing, it's going to be a lower budget. And so, I mean, even like, sometimes we'll like be moving forward with someone, and then last minute they're like, just kidding, we actually can't shoot in the US. And,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so then it's like, okay, well, we just pitched you three great directors, but they're all based in the US, which actually happened during COVID with, I believe it was with you.
I was
Um,
with me. Yeah, like, are you being self-referential? Yeah, I was like, oh, this is sold, and then they're like, oh wait, we can't shoot in
yeah,
SAG or
and it
something.
was, yeah, yeah.
Legality.
And so
Yeah.
it's like things that are out of our control, right?
Right.
Where it's like the money, the budget, and it's nothing about like them as a director.
Yeah.
It's just the logistics, right?
Yeah.
And so then it's like we kind of just accept what we are given and try and make it work. And in the end, like on that one, it worked. It did. Was it harder in the end? Probably. But it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's such a good perspective also for people and emerging directors and photographers, just to think about how like so much of it has nothing to do with you, and
Yes.
like, oh, it's the world revolves around us. We're putting so much effort into these things, but like this is a business. They're trying to sell things. They're trying to find the right partner, and so many things that that you wouldn't even expect. Like you could be a great option, but it's just there's so many things that have happened where jobs get canceled 2 days before the shoot because the creative director, the AC, or like the CCO doesn't like the creative anymore or something. Like these
Right.
big, these are big behemoth brands that have a lot going on, and sometimes you're working with like other agencies that handle like one part handles their PR, one part handles social. So it's like this
Oh.
huge ecosystem that we're sort of inserting ourselves in to help with our skill set to bring to life. So I appreciate that you're mentioning that, because it's so much of it is out of our control.
I mean, well, and that's like a great reminder that, I mean, anything in life, whether you're a director, a creative, an entrepreneur, is at the end of the day, you really don't have a lot of control, and really like just I think some of the directors that have worked best are the ones who just unabashedly are themselves, and because either even if it didn't work out, the creatives behind it, go back to that director. Like myself, I'm always like coming back to you, Christina, because I know like what you can do, right? Because you presented yourself wholeheartedly as like, who you are as a director, and not trying to like be something else. And other directors I've worked with, like, they, yeah, presented exactly who they are, and like, they put some like crazy ideas out there, and some of them like we did, but had they kind of like played it safe and been like, I just want to like get this job and like make sure they're happy, we probably wouldn't have gone with them. And
Mm.
so it's, taking the risk, and like you said, just sometimes it doesn't work out, and like it's not personal, it's business, and it's also just like the energy and collaboration piece, right? Like how can the creatives and director work together, and sometimes like it's not a match, right?
Yeah,
um and so worse to kind of force it for both sides.
yeah, yeah, and I love, I mean, this is something that I sort of mentioned in the course when I was getting all my ideas about the experience I've had pitching over the years, and that a big component of it is, you know, if you go safe and you just don't add or you don't take risks in pushing. I mean, you want to see something new. You know, you're reaching out to other creative partners because you're interested in like what comes to your mind. Like, let's push it beyond. And so being safe is definitely not the way to pitch because you. And I think a lot of people in the beginning think that, you know, pitching something safe is better because it won't scare the client away, but it just doesn't even get people inspired enough, and like they're coming to you for your unique point of view. So
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that.
And I think an important point on that too is like knowing when to add that value, right? Because there's sometimes where, you know, we'll have a client that we've worked 6 months, almost sometimes a year with, right? To like really nail down the storyboards. Maybe they went through testing and
Yeah,
everything. And so now it's like, okay, what we're proposing here is pretty much what we like want to make, you know, but you bring the storytelling to life. And sometimes, you know, directors will just like go rogue and be like, yeah, then we're gonna do this whole scene where we go like this, and it's like, it's like, whoa, 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 what? Why are you doing
yeah,
that? And you know, so
it's a
it's,
fine
I
line.
think it's a fine
Yeah.
line, and knowing like, I think it's even fair to ask like, hey, like, where are you looking for me to add additional value?
Ah,
Um,
that's
be,
cool.
because you know I think that like there are always problems that we can't as creatives solve, and that like that's why you know we're working with you, right? Or else we shoot it
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
But like, right, and so I think helping actually getting that out of the creative team can be really helpful of like understanding the problems they haven't solved yet that you can really help solve. And like, you know, I mean, like a one project I worked on, we didn't do any storyboarding because we purely wanted to like have the director do the storyboarding, their vision, how they wanted it, and honestly, it was completely different from like what I would have thought of.
yeah,
Purely because like it was also for women's products and it was a female director,
yeah,
right? And so like having a female director and that was obviously so important. But someone who also like was not like held back, reserved. She really just like went for it and did what she wanted, because she knew we were looking to like solve that problem, like where that you know issue lied. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I love that just advice that you've given about like asking where you can elevate things, or where do you see the where I can kind of fit into solving a problem for you, like maybe even on the creative call or something. Um, have you like in terms of, I guess, because there's the like I hop on with a creative team with the agency. Typically, we go through the concept, then I go into making the treatment, and then sometimes I get the opportunity to present the treatment, not all the time. But, you know, I think, and I know you're saying recently you've done a lot of single bids and you've worked with people that, you know, already have like established relationships. But in those events when you're triple bidding, and, you know, how do those things weigh out? I actually, I guess it's the real, like their work and the call and the treatment. Like all of these three things are like this kind of introduction. Like, is this going to work between us? Like, do you have the, what do you think is the most important? I'm assuming probably the work, but yeah, I mean, talk about like, or even the call. Like, do you really get a vibe? Like, immediately after a call, do you feel like love this person, or like totally didn't vibe off this person? Like, how do you feel like yeah, the importance of those steps are?
I mean, for one, I think the real is important, and even having that, just, you know, even welcoming that discussion, right? Because like we see some reels and it's like, like what is this? Like what is happening? And right, but then you go look at like you might do like we'll do a deep dive of like their work and it's like, oh, they actually have like other stuff here, you know? And so sometimes it's like seeing the bigger picture
Yeah,
because you know initially, you know, if you know they're sending over a reel specific for our project, you know, they might have included things that we thought that they thought we needed, but in turn we actually like needed I don't know, to see something
Yeah.
else. So as creatives, if we kind of like have an inkling that like this director might be someone who's good, we'll like, look separately ourselves and pull those in. But then I'd say, yeah, the call is important, of course, just to see like chemistry check. Like, is this person sane? Are they easy to work with? Do they talk over everyone, or are they easygoing? Because right when you're on set and something goes wrong and you're 4 hours behind, how do you you want someone who can like help manage that, right? And
Yeah.
be like cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
But then I think lastly is giving it is the stage where it's like they present their treatment and then you provide feedback and then we get that treatment back and the question is, did they hear us? And did they like apply that feedback, right? um, because sometimes they might not have applied the feedback or they went down like a totally different rabbit hole, totally and other direction that we weren't asking for. And so then it's a question of like, did they not understand us? Did we not
Oh,
share directly, right? And that's where like communication is so
yeah.
key in really understanding like what the ask is,
Yeah.
because that can like
Yeah.
make it or break
Yeah.
it.
Actually, I haven't talked about this yet, but I love because I have one part that's sort of towards the end of my course that talks about feedback, and I just say like welcome feedback because, I mean, in my mind, and my question to you is, do you ask all of the directors to make adjustments, or is it one main one? And because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, they want to help me be more
Yeah.
presentable or like be more aligned, so they're just like giving you notes in a way, take those notes. And I'm always excited because I'm like, oh, that was so generous of them to do that because I know they have my back and they're just helping me succeed, or they're just helping themselves pitch me through. And so then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm the favorite. But I don't know because obviously maybe you're giving feedback to all the directors so that they're all kind of equally positioned to have just a slightly like more refined treatment or something. Um,
I
yeah, what do you?
think I oftentimes, I mean, I guess sometimes we give feedback to everyone, but oftentimes we're giving feedback to like the director that we think we're going to go
Okay.
with, and so that they have a better pitch,
Yeah.
and so that it kind of aligns like with what we want to do. Because also, it makes us look good if we're like, yes, we found a director that works great, right? And I think it's also fair, in addition to just asking for like general feedback, is it depends again who the team is, but some people like don't always know how to give constructive feedback, and um, because it might just be like, like it's good, it's good enough, and like we don't want to like make them do work or hurt their feelings or whatever. And so I think asking some questions of like, does this solve what you're looking for? Are you looking for more creative pushes that you didn't see or that you were expecting?
Uh,
um, are there areas that you wish were different in some way, or
yeah.
um, because I think some of those specific questions are like easier to answer that might not come up if you're just having like an open dialogue. You would hope, but sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't.
So for you, would that happen like maybe because it sounds like you want to make sure that it's coming across that you're a collaborator, and because a lot of times when I present my treatments, I'll kick it off with like, love this to be an open discussion, like please interrupt me at any time because I just don't want to be talking at people for like 30
Yeah.
minutes. And it's just I've already like looked at this treatment for however many days, and you probably have read through it, so it's always like, how do you handle that call? And is that where you think the opportunity would be to discuss what we sort of laid out and say, like, how do you feel about this? And, does this resonate or does this not? Or is that sort of a good opportunity to do that?
Yeah, I think for sure. And also, I mean, even asking the areas that resonate really well,
Uh,
right? Because that gives you some insight into like, oh, okay, they're really liking this, and let's do more of this, right? I think that is really, yeah, helpful, because then you see like the positive, but also, and maybe that helps them be like, oh yeah, actually this isn't working as well, but this is. Yeah, I think those specifics are helpful.
yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I was gonna say, wait, what was my train of thought going? Um, oh, just like, is there do's and don'ts that, certain things that you've seen on a treatment, like, I can't believe they did that, or something that can just help people getting started, or, um, you know, any kind of overall feedback for people that are starting out? Because it is, I feel very fortunate because sometimes when you get signed, you have somebody on staff that can help you design your treatments. So you can really actually focus on the ideas and the visuals, the writing. But then on top of that, you're doing the design. So I remember, when I'm starting out, and it's just to do everything can feel so daunting. And so having any types of like tips to really reshift your focus on what should I actually be focusing on for this treatment and what should I definitely not do. Whether it's like really small things like, don't use the wrong logo or like,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything sticks out in your brain.
No, I think for sure, do not use the wrong logo. Um, I can't remember, like, yeah, because often, yeah, you'll see the creative deck ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really helpful when, yeah, they kind of match like what the aesthetic at least, because it tells us like, okay, they get it, um, and yeah, because when it's just a totally different like color palette and everything, it's like, unless it's like black and white, fine, it's neutral. But yeah, when it's like a green color palette, but the brand is blue, then it's like, wait, what's happening here? But I
Yeah.
think, and I guess we kind of talked about it earlier, but like um, going in and solving something that was not asked to be solved,
Oh,
as the only thing. Um, like I think, solve what was asked first, and then solve it in your own unique way that maybe they didn't ask for. That's the added benefit, right? Um, it could be like even saying, hey, this, I heard you on, like, you want to get the shot this way. Here's like a couple alternative ways that I was thinking. If you're open to this, I'd love to do this, or we could do it if time allots,
mm-hmm.
right? Um, because then it's like, okay, yeah, actually, I love what you proposed. Thanks for showing us, what we were thinking first. But let's go with yours. Or it's like, hey, I'm not so sure. If time allows, if you're willing, then yeah, let's get both. I think that that's really helpful. And yeah, I think like pulling in reference imagery for what, I mean, most of the time people do. Sometimes there are some directors who have not before. But I think like reference imagery or photography can be helpful, right? Just in addition to maybe what we've shared. And even like photography specifically, I was actually just thinking about this today is like normally when we share a mood board, it's, photos that have already been created, right? And we're not trying to recreate them. Those are just like the closest in our head. And it's going to be a mix, right? But for the client, it's like, they want to see this yoga pose, but that actually is a famous photo for another brand. And,
Yeah.
and so what's interesting though is like I wonder with AI, some of these comps because like you as a director, you guys will do drawings right for the mood boards, but even with like AI for photography, it's not like we're usually doing sketches, and maybe that sometimes, but like usually there's not money to do that. But like even from maybe an art director creative team perspective, having AI create imagery for like posing and even just like how the scene is set up maybe is helpful because then that's not a photo that's been done. It's inspired by photos, but right, it's not the exact photo that's been done. And so then you're taking this inspiration versus like copying a photo, which I think is great. But then the other thing that I guess I was trying to say is like for the photo team to like give some inspiration on like how they kind of see the setup and like differentiate it from the mood board, but have the essence of it and really understand like what the creative team is trying to get at in their visuals, right? Because it could be like, oh, just the color, could be the layout, could be the pose, could be a million
Mm-hmm.
things.
Have you been seeing a lot of pitches with, or have you been using AI visuals in your own pitches? Has it been helpful for you?
Yeah, actually, in a recent mood board, or not a mood board, a script, we did some AI. What do you call it? It's the um, yes, it's
Journey. Okay.
Midjourney. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
in the style of Wes Anderson. If you're ever creating, actually,
Yeah.
like this is kind of your style. Well, Wes Anderson, but like
Yeah.
monotone chromatics. But like Wes Anderson style creates amazing visuals, and so it was great to just be able to, kind of get the scene of like what's happening, versus trying to like go through like, Getty Images or Shutterstock and finding some, imagery to put in there that's not right and then trying to comp it. But it doesn't really get the idea across. And so even if it's not exactly right, it's closer than trying to find some stock photo that looks really bad.
Yeah. And your like clients or the brands that you're talking to, they're not like alarmed by AI images and all like, oh, this is weird. Like, don't show, faces that are like eyes are off. Like, they don't mind. I just do the caveat, like, this is AI, pitch purposes only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. It's
Yeah.
like pitch purpose only. Like we're not
Yeah.
using it
Yeah.
for the real world. And Midjourney has been like shout out to them because they are pretty good with the eyes and everything. Um, and for like creating faces. And so yeah, so far it's been
Yeah.
good in that, and hopefully just like makes everyone's life a little bit easier to then create something greater in real
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, it's hopefully easier, greater, and like almost more. I mean, I'm sure there's like, this could get into a whole discussion about copyright and all these things, but I would argue that it makes you a little bit more creative because what you're putting in, you're just not expecting what you get out. And it is pulling from, millions of sources of images, but I love the surprise. I think everyone does. Like, what am I going to get with this output? And it just can really expand your creativity in ways that you didn't think of. It's like my own like assistant. I think that's how I think about it.
Yeah, no,
I
exactly.
can't
It's like
solve this problem. You solve it. Or like, I only see it this way. I need another perspective to like burst my bubble of what I'm looking at. Um, so yeah, that's really exciting. I actually just did a pitch with like ton of AI visuals for the set design reference, and it was I was having so much fun with like an elevator and like crazy. Um,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, oh, do you have like a preference on like the length, and do you feel like certain sections, like I always feel like I have to talk about every section, but whether or not they're critical to, or would you rather have a tighter treatment that really just talks about the core, or do you like a lengthy treatment that goes into the post-production, the edit, the sound design, the music, the casting, performance? Like, is length, and does it feel daunting, and do you sort of skim through it and you're like, I wish I had bullet points? Like, I guess your overall perspective on the length of a treatment and what your expectations are.
I would say longer is not longer isn't hurtful. Like
Okay.
I think it also depends on what the person's what that director's role is. And for some shoots, the director, is just there to, shoot it, and we do the editing, and the director's not involved in that. But other times where like the director is fully involved, right, with everything from the shoot to post production. That especially is really helpful when they're sharing like thoughts on music, thoughts on sound design, or even like casting. Who would be in here. Um, and I would say that we might not talk about the music, right? But we might.
Oh, oh yeah, I think I can't hear you. Oh, now you're back. Okay.
Oh, okay, there we go. Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I hit the limit on my Instagram for the day.
Oh,
Um,
oh my gosh, I love that you have that setting.
oops.
I'm sorry. I was gonna
Um,
wrap up soon anyway.
no, it's totally fine. Okay, but yeah, so those details I think are great, and like we might not look at them all and really think through it at that time, but it's great to like come back to and know that it's there. Um, I would say casting even is really helpful. because, you know, especially depending on the shoot, but like one that we did where it was like a variety of different women and bodies and races. It was helpful for the director to understand what we were looking for, right? Because then when their producers go out and go to casting talent agencies, we want to know that like they understand we need different size women, right? Because they're not all at one talent agency.
Yeah.
And so that was really important because if they didn't get that, then that would be like a big, you know, hiccup that we'd have to work through.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so longer I think is
You,
I would say is better, and
you prefer.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because normally like we'd cut it down anyways for the client, you know.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Cool. Well, I feel obliged to let you go since let's like just applaud you on the Instagram limit. That's like a setting, right? That you can set in
yes,
your profile.
yeah,
So, I mean, we could have a whole nother conversation about mental health and social media and you are such a wealth of knowledge, but also such like a bright light that is so open in your practice, like your life practice, your brand, your everything you're sort of building as the Brian Lamy brand. I would say just you've been so authentically
oh,
yourself and
thank you.
how you show up on social media, but also creating boundaries in that way. And so I absolutely love you. I love everything you're doing, and I really appreciate you taking the time to just share more behind the curtain of what it's like for you. And I know that a lot of people are going to benefit from this. So, yeah, really thank you for your time. And you can shut off your Instagram.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm so excited for what you're doing and this masterclass that you're gonna be teaching, and all the, you know, future, current and future directors that will benefit from it. Because I think that's awesome, and especially like in this ever-changing landscape, which like I guess we didn't even talk about
Yeah.
that, but like the 16:9, 9 by
Oh, yeah.
16, we're not
Yeah.
even going to go there. But
Totally.
like, right, there's so many things that are changing in this world, this landscape of advertising that
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really beneficial, and you're kind of like on the forefront of that. So yeah, really
Yes.
proud to know
I have
you.
to share, so I might as well download them too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I wish I had something like this when I was starting out. So I
Yeah,
want to, create something that I feel fills that hole and that is an open, book. But
yeah.
yeah, well, thank you again, and I
Thank
can't wait
you.
to connect with you on all the things. And yeah, maybe we'll have you back for a part two.
Great. We can talk about social media and
Yeah,
mental health.
yeah, I love a good chat with you. So yeah, have
Perfect.
a great rest of your week, and we will chat very
Thank
soon.
you.
All right,
Bye.
bye.